Okay, in this video we'll talk about HTML interaction, how we can use JavaScript to interact with the HTML. So JavaScript can run and it can modify the content, style, and behavior of a web page. So we'll go through all of these different things that JavaScript can do, but I'd like to do that with some code. So I'm making the video lesson now, but at the top of the video, once I'm done it, there's a start code dummy.html.git. So we will get that from GitHub. Just go to that wonderful green button, download zip. I will get that from the downloads folder. Okay, and I've got my F drive here, CS10, web programming, and let's put it into here. So we'll extract it from the zip folder and get it into here. Good. Okay, and then we'll get Visual Studio Code ready to go. And again, it opened on my other screen, sorry. And when we do this, I'll just drag that in, minimize that, maximize this. Awesome. Okay, so all this is, I call it dummy HTML because it's not anything. It's, well, let's see what it looks like. So we'll make sure that this is, I can close that now. We'll go live. So it's just, yeah, headings and lists and an image and another heading with a paragraph. There's even a link in here. It's just some, and this lorem ipsum text and a picture. So just random HTML. And just here so we can play around with it. Many of the elements have IDs. Well, pretty much all of them have IDs on them. And that's going to be important for when we select elements. So remember when we did CSS, we often would do a class like dot center, text align center, and then we could go into here and say, hey, H1, I'm going to give you a class of center, and you hit save, and now that H1 is centered. Okay, so we know how to select elements using class, and we can have multiple elements, remember? And it doesn't matter if it goes before or after the ID. Class center, the paragraph could also be in a center class, and it will center, right? So classes we've learned about. Now IDs, classes are used more for CSS, IDs are used more for JavaScript, because when we do JavaScript, I want to be able to select specifically one element. Right? I want to select a specific element, and that's what an ID is. An ID, you're only allowed to use one time. So the ID main heading, this should be the only element with the ID main heading. Whereas when we do a class, you can have multiple people in a class. It actually makes sense if you think about it like school, right? In a class, this is a really small class of 2, but when you have an ID, you're assigned a student ID number, and only you have that number. So same with elements. If you give an element an ID, it should be the only element with that ID. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this class for now. But yeah, it's just very similar, ID equals, and you give it a name. Okay, so if we go to the notes here, basically the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select HTML elements. So document, which is the page, .get element by ID, and then you give it the ID name as a string, as some text and quotations inside of the brackets here. Okay, so let's try to do that with our dummy HTML. I'm going to open up the console here just to have it available. And in my dummy HTML, we need to make a JavaScript file. Okay, so I'm going to just call it main.js. And then we need to load that. We usually want to load our JavaScript at the bottom of the body. That way the page will load first, and then it'll do, like all the elements will load first, and then it'll run the JavaScript. So we'll do our script tag, and we do that source equals main.js. Okay, good. Now in here, I can do a little title for my program. We'll call it HTML interaction. And I didn't do this before, but it's a good, actually I have not, use strict. Is a command that's nice to do at the beginning of your JavaScript file. And basically it uses a strict mode of JavaScript, a more modern mode of JavaScript, and it gives you better error messages and stuff. So it's a good habit to get into, to put that use strict. I'll try to remember it in my videos. I don't always remember it. Okay, but it does come in handy. Okay, so use strict, and now we are going to select an element. Oh dear, how do I select an element? Actually, you know what? Let's show you this first. So document, get element by ID. One of the elements, let's pick an ID. Let's go para1. Para1, beautiful. I can actually type JavaScript in here. Para1, end bracket. And this will tell the document to get the element with the ID para1. And when I hit enter, you'll see that it's returned this paragraph with the ID para1. And when we hover over it, it even highlights it. That's cool. You can go down and it shows the contents of it. Okay, so that selected that element. Document.get element by ID. What's another ID? li1. Sure. li1 like that. And it searched the document for the element with ID li1 and it returns it. And there it is, list item 1. Okay, so the reason that this is important is because if I want to add an event listener to a specific element, I need to first select the element that I want by ID and then add the event listener. So for example, in our last video, we did document.add event listener click handler like so, and then we would have our event functions. Remember, these are comments, right? It's just like a title. Function click handler like so, and we can just go console.log click. Right? So what this does, if I go back to here, is whenever I click the document, it says click. Right? Anywhere on the document, and it will specify that a click event has happened. All right. However, what if I want to only have something happen when I click on the image? Right? So let's do that. The image has the ID img1. So now in here, I can just add to this. I can first, before I add the event listener, right? This is adding the event listener to the document. I can go document.get element by ID, give it the ID img1, and then do the .add event listener. So this will select that image element, and then we'll add the event listener to the image element so that when we click the image, it'll run this function. Let's try it. So now, right, I'm clicking anywhere, I'm clicking headings, I'm clicking paragraphs, I'm clicking lists. Nothing's happening except the link still works. Anyway, back, clicking everywhere, dunk, awesome. So when we click the image, it happens, but not anywhere else. We could change that to para1, right? So we select para1, so now the image doesn't do anything, but here's para1. It'll register the click event. Okay. All right, so we can select HTML elements. We can add event listeners to those specific HTML elements like so with any event and give it the function. In addition to adding event listeners, you can also set the content of a specific HTML element. So let's add this, let's keep this click listener. Let's just do it with the image. And inside of here, let's update content. What do we want to update content of? Let's say maybe our heading 1. We're going to change what that says. So heading 1 has a ID of main-heading. So I'm going to go document. Please get the element with the ID main-heading. And then .inner HTML. So the document will find this element, and .inner HTML will access its inner HTML. It's what is inside of this element, its content. All right? And we can go an equal sign, which is the assignment operator, and says make the inner HTML be assigned awesome heading. Sure. And then a semicolon to end that statement. So now when we click the image, we're putting everything together here. We're selecting the image, adding the event listener. So when we click it, it'll run the click handler function. In the click handler function, the document will search for the main heading and set its inner HTML to be awesome heading. All right, let's hope this works. All right, so click, click, click. When I click the image, bam, it changed the inner HTML to awesome heading. Cool. Okay. And remember, if there are mistakes, right, if I spell something wrong and I try to do it, ooh, it's nice if it gives me an error message. In this case, it's not giving me an error message. That's too bad. Sometimes you do get an error message, but what it's probably doing is like it's thinking, well, maybe there is some property that you want to be inner HTML, but it's not the right one. So sometimes you get error messages, sometimes you don't. If I forgot the equal sign, well, first of all, Visual Studio Code says, whoa, there's something wrong with what you're doing here. And I think, yeah, it shows up here, unexpected string, saying, hey, you have this string here. They're supposed to, what do you want to do with it? Oh, you want to assign the inner HTML to be that string. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that's cool. Let's try one more thing. We've got, try to get through all of these. We are setting the content with that inner HTML. We can also set the attribute of an element. So you can go dot whatever attribute you want, so source or href or whatever. So let's try to do something here. Maybe what we'll do is change the image source attribute. Got a couple images here, lorem ipsum 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's currently 1. So let's go to here and update source attribute. This was update content of main heading, source attribute of image. So again, we started with document. Please get the element with the ID image1. And now we go dot, and now we can specify the attribute, src, so dot source. And we do the same thing, right? We're going to do an equal sign to say assign the source property or the source attribute to have the value images slash lorem ipsum 2.jpg. Cool. So now when I click the image, yes, it changed the content and it changed the source of the image. Hit refresh and it should do it again. Okay, awesome. Okay, I think we're running out of time here. So let's stop there. We learned how to select elements by ID. We learned how to add event listeners to specific elements. We learned how to set the content and change the attribute, source attribute. You could also just go .href, set attributes. Next, we'll look at changing styles and classes, and we'll do that in the next video. Okay, hopefully that made sense so far. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.